Hi, it's time for a mail call or unboxing video. We have one package today. This time of year it's usually a little on the slow side and haven't been picking up as many interesting things as I normally do, I suppose. It's rather a small box, kind of long and skinny. Styrofoam, and if I can get it out, there it goes. Oh, lots of styrofoam. Let's put the styrofoam back in the box. I cleaned up the shop the other day. Don't want to make a big mess. Put the box over there. Wrapped up in some free USPS Priority Mail bubble wrap envelopes because everybody likes free stuff that you can get from the post office. There we go. That over there. And I'll take this one off. And what do we have? Well, it's in a plastic bag too. Get rid of those. And what we have today is a Rittenhouse. This is a model RM20/RM22. I believe the difference in the model number has to do with the cosmetics, the looks of it. One of them, I think, were black. I think there were another version that was more of a wood grain look or something like that. But this is an early-ish Rittenhouse Intercom master station that I picked up on eBay for a very reasonable price. So here we have our Rittenhouse model RM20/RM22 AM/FM Intercom master station. I think that this model is from the late 1960s, early 1970s. I haven't found out a lot of detailed information about it yet. That's something that is upcoming, but it is apparently all transistor. And I do have some personal first-hand experience with this, or these I should say, and not with fixing them, actually with taking them out. When we were in California, there was a subdivision of townhouses that were built. There were about 90 or so townhouses, and every single townhouse had one of these. And they were all identical sized intercom systems. You had one master station that was in the kitchen eating area. You had one station outside by the front door, and you had 3 bedroom stations upstairs, 3 remote stations upstairs. There was a den, which could also be converted when you bought the place into an optional extra bedroom. Sometimes there was a speaker if it was the extra bedroom, but most people apparently chose the den option, or went with the standard den option, I should say. This goes back like 25, 30 years ago. There wasn't really anybody at that time that was interested in repairing something like this. When they broke down, which they do because they're old, people were mostly interested in updating them with new modern equipment. For us, NuTone, we were sort of the go-to company in the greater Bay Area to do upgrades. We became very proficient at doing that. There are some challenges on upgrading one of these, and we'll go over that in a second. It's a nice model. It's smaller than average. It's about the same width as most master stations, but it's about half the height or so, maybe 2/3 the height. So it's a little more slimline. You have separate AM and FM radio tuning dials, which is more of a deluxe design, which you would sort of expect from Rittenhouse, I think. And then you have here a series of switches. You have power off and on. You have radio, which can be off, or AM, switch doesn't want to move, or FM to the right. And the reason they do this is because you would typically leave the power switch on, so the intercom is on and ready to go. And if you don't want to listen to the radio, you can turn the radio off here. Then you have standby stations on and off. Not exactly sure how that's used. You have master speaker volume. You have low, off, and high. So you can make an assumption that the volume control here at the top, which if you turn it down it says off, this would be the volume for the entire system. not just the master station. There is no master speaker volume knob. And then you have door off or on. And I believe that if you have the door switch in the on position and you're listening to the radio, the music plays out through the door station. I think it's one of those type of systems. You have a tone control here. And what we would typically say from systems like this, from this era, is you have treble or less treble. You don't have a lot in the way of bass, I'm guessing, but we'll find out if we get it working. And then you have your intercom control here, 3-position switch. You have radio, phonograph, and intercom when the dot is pointed there. And then you have listen and talk. So a system like this, the intercom works a lot like walkie-talkies. You would move the switch to talk and call to someone, and then it automatically springs down to listen, and then the person in the other room moves their switch to talk and answers back. So it's talk and listen, talk and listen, talk and listen, just like walkie-talkies. It's very simple. It's not an unattractive look. It has a very 70s kind of look. And if we turn it around, you can see here on the label, see if you can see that right there. I can't see it on the screen that well, but it does say Rittenhouse RM20/RM22. This one is serial number 1188-1084. I have no idea what that really means other than it's probably just a serial number. Don't see anything on here that has a date per se, but we can investigate by looking carefully. Don't see anything there. There's something here. This could be 1968 maybe. What you really want to look for is you want to try to look for components that would typically have a date code on them for manufacturing. Of course, that's easier to do if you put the magnifiers on and you look really carefully. And it does have an RCA 40254, which is a transistor. I'm assuming, based on just looking at it real quick here, it's probably the output for the amplifier. But I don't see anything else in particular that looks like a date code. So more disassembly is probably required to figure out when this pup was actually made. Nope, don't really see anything. Anyway, so what we have here is a relatively straightforward design. Here you have an AM and FM tuner. There is a little sort of daughter board over here on the end, a little hard to see. I'm suspecting that that is primarily mostly for the AM based on where the wires run and so forth. No, that would be for the FM. Sorry, that would be for the FM down there because this is the FM tuner, this is the AM tuner up here. So we have that. There's a board buried down underneath here that has the volume controls, switches, and all of that on it. And then this board here would be, oh, and I think your power supply board, these blue and white wires here are what get connected to the low voltage transformer. This is a low voltage system, and it would have a low voltage transformer that's mounted somewhere else in the house. And that goes down here to the switch, and then it looks like it comes back up. So it's a little hard to tell exactly, but I'm guessing that your primary power supply is probably this portion of this board. You have an audio transformer here. There's another transformer here. Not sure where that's for exactly. This is probably the output transistor. It's a relatively simple design. Not a lot to it. Now, I mentioned that we did a lot of replacements of these, and replacements of these were kind of tricky. And if I can get this plug out, I'll show you why. It has, in Rittenhouse fashion, this big Amphenol connector, big plug-in. There we go. So you have the Amphenol socket here. Oh, and there's this capacitor that comes off the power supply board, the orange. You got the blue capacitor and the twisted orange and black wires for Halloween, I guess, and it goes all the way down over to here. There's a matching capacitor here, another blue one, and without taking it off, I don't know if the values are exactly the same, but I'm guessing they probably are. The question would be, why is this mounted way over here by the speaker? And my guess is probably that they ran out of room. It's a fairly small set and fairly large capacitors for back in the day. These are rated at, they're 640 microfarads, which is a very odd value at 25 volts. You would substitute it with, like, in today's value, like a 680 and at 25 volts, and it would be relatively small. It probably would be less than a quarter the size of this one, so you could easily have fit two in here. The other thing, which I just noticed, is this is what happens to old capacitors. If you look right here, you can see it has a cardboard end on it. I think it's cardboard. Or it could be some kind of rubbery material. Anyway, right here, we've had a blowout because this has failed internally and it builds up pressure and it's vented out through the end cap. Anyway, back to replacing these, something that we have a lot of experience with. So you have your big Amphenol connector here, and you have your Amphenol plug here, and this one has a total of 8 pins on it. 8. And then you have all of these wires that come out of it, because these are loop wired systems. So most intercom systems are home run systems, which means that if you have 6 remote stations, back at the master station, back in the wall behind the master station, you'll have 6 individual cables, one from each remote speaker. And then the wires get divvied up into their different spots and everything gets connected up and you're good to go. A loop wired system is done differently. There are always some limitations on how loop wired systems are designed, and you have to figure it out based on what the manufacturer tells you. But essentially, the simplified explanation of a loop wired system is you can start with one cable, and in this case it probably will have 2, 4, 6, I forget if it's 6 or 8 wires. It's probably 8. You can have one 8 conductor cable that begins here at the master station and gets hooked up to the pigtail ends of these wires. And then it travels through the house to the first remote station, and then travels through the house to the next remote station, and travels through the house to the next remote station, and so forth. The limitations on loop wiring are often how many individual remote stations you can have on a single loop, because there is usually a limit, and oftentimes also the maximum length of wire within the loop from one end to the other. It's not infinity. You can't have a 2,000 foot run of wire with 47 speakers on it. It doesn't work that way. There are always limits. In these particular townhouses, what we figured out that we could do were to use a NuTone system, a 3-wire system, and you divvy up the conductors in the Rittenhouse cable so that you essentially create a home run system. There were some tricky ins and outs on doing that to keep the impedance of the wire correct so you didn't get howling on the intercom system and that kind of stuff. But once you figure it out, if you got 90 some townhouses that you possibly can do, and word gets out through the homeowners association that, hey, there's this company that knows how to replace these and they work really well when they get done, that's always a good thing for business. So I bought this because there are probably a lot of these out there, and I would like to be able to learn more about what it takes to fix it. So far, I have been unsuccessful with coming up with any kind of documentation or literature to go along with this, but I'll keep searching and eventually I'll find what I'm looking for. I'm not too concerned about working on the circuit boards because they will probably fall in line with a lot of other Rittenhouse models. Most companies like Rittenhouse and NuTone and Music and Sound, their designs are usually mostly evolutionary, which means this one was based a lot on the previous model, which was based on the previous model on the previous model. There are always points in evolutionary designs where things sometimes change drastically, but since they were probably designed by the same engineers. They're not that drastic because guys get used to doing things a certain way and they don't abandon that completely because they're comfortable with it and they know it works. So that helps me out. That's pretty much it. The Rittenhouse RM20/RM22, and I'm pretty sure that once I get a little more information about this, and the other thing I have to find out about it is what Rittenhouse remote stations does it use, because I know what they look like, but looks can be deceiving, and I need to get at least 2 remote stations. Door stations shouldn't be a problem, so I can create a little test setup that I can hook up into this and then test it and make sure it works correctly and repair it and clean the switches. These are like really hard to move. It's like all you can do to push them. So everything needs to be cleaned thoroughly. And this is actually a nice faceplate. It's got this little faux wood grain edge around it, which is nice. It had some silver highlighting like this that has worn away, but that's relatively easy to fix. And these aluminum panels here, which are kind of dirty, but they would clean up okay, clean up the knobs. You'd be surprised how good this can look if it's all cleaned up well. So that's a Rittenhouse RM20/RM22 AM/FM radio intercom master station that I'm pretty sure you'll be able to see in another video in the not too distant future. Hope you found this interesting, and perhaps for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications. And every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.